talking about the exam format. I'll be giving you some tips from some speaking examiners, and then looking at some ways to practice, and then also give you an idea about what to expect in the IELTS speaking exam during the pandemic. So what's happening at the moment. So I'm not sure if you have joined a webinar before, but just to tell you about the structure, basically I will be talking at you for about 20-25 minutes, and then at the end there'll be a chance for you to ask any questions. So you can write your questions in the chat, but if you can just wait until towards the end, that's more helpful, because it's quite difficult to see the chat and respond and talk at the same time. So thank you for your patience on that. Okay, so first of all, can you write in the chat what you know about the IELTS speaking exam, what the format is, what you're expected to do, any information you know about the IELTS speaking. So if you just write some ideas in the chat. Okay, so Nayeli says it's about 14 to 16 minutes. Paula says no idea. That's okay, that's why you're here, I presume. Okay, so it's evaluated by different areas. That's true. There's very specific criteria that the examiner uses. Okay, so let me explain to you then. There are 3 parts in the exam. So we're going to go through each part so that you can understand exactly what happens. So part 1, it's basically like an introduction. So the examiner will introduce themselves and also check that you're who you are. So they'll check your name and your candidate number. And then they'll ask you some questions on really familiar topics. So things like home, work, studies, interests, hobbies, sports maybe. So kind of very everyday topics. And the idea is just to see how is your ability to communicate your opinions and everyday information or experiences or situations. So you're just talking about yourself, basically. So although the topics are usually very like friendly and nice, sometimes you can get some slightly strange wild cards. So you might get, for example, a question like, do you like flowers? Which might kind of throw you off a little bit because maybe you've never thought about it. Or you might get something like, how often do you use a dictionary? So although they are familiar topics, there might be some that are a bit strange. I remember one student of mine got questions about trees. So that was a little bit strange. But in general, it should be really nice questions about very easy topics. Some tips that we have from a speaking examiner is that sometimes you might be asked questions that are closed. So it will seem like the answer is yes or no. So for example, do you like flowers? You might say, yes, I like flowers. But of course, because this is the IELTS speaking exam, you need to extend your idea and give some more information about what you think about flowers. So you might say, yes, I like flowers. My mum always gives me flowers for my birthday, or something like that. So don't just say yes or no. It's a speaking exam. So then There are usually around 4 questions for each topic, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it can be more, sometimes less. So if you get a strange question like, do you use dictionaries? Try to, as you're talking about the first, as you're talking through the first question, try to start thinking about what else you know about dictionaries or what else you know about trees so that you can answer the following questions. But you can expect around 4, basically. Okay, so that's part 1. Part 2, we call it the long turn. So for this one, it's about 3 or 4 minutes, but you are only speaking for 2 minutes. So the examiner will give you a task card, which will have a topic and then some points that you need to talk about. So it might be something like, talk about someone who has influenced you. And then it will have like, who is it? How do you know them? What's it, what happened? So it will give you little prompts on the card. So then the examiner will give you 1 minute to make some notes about that topic. And they will have pencil and paper there, so you don't need to worry about that. And then you will be talking for up to 2 minutes about that topic. And I'm not sure about you, but 2 minutes can feel like a very long time when it's just you talking and there is no response. So the examiner will stop you after 2 minutes. So it's a good thing if the examiner stops you because it means that the 2 minutes is finished. What you don't want is to stop talking and the examiner's like, and you've got nothing else to say. So just keep going for as long as possible and don't worry if the examiner says, okay, thank you, that's enough. But the important thing about this part of the exam is that it's a demonstration to the examiner of how well you can organize your ideas and talk without conversational prompts, so just you talking, okay? So some tips that the speaking examiner gave was make sure that you practice speaking for 2 minutes so that you know how it feels. For some people it feels very long, for some people it feels very short, but you need to have a general idea of how much you can say in 2 minutes. The topics will often be about personal experiences. So make sure that when you have that 1 minute of thinking time and note-taking time, try to choose something that's very vivid in your mind because you need to talk about it for 2 minutes, firstly. And also you need to remember that the examiner has probably listened to 10 people before you talking about the same topic. So they are so bored. So if you're talking about something really interesting and that you feel really passionate about or really emotional about, that will be much more interesting for the examiner. And it will just help the ideas to flow better. If, however, you are feeling super nervous and you have no ideas, I think it's okay for you to just lie or to at least embellish an idea. So it can be half true, half lie, but the idea is that you just can talk about it. So that's another thing that you can practice. So the other thing is when you're talking for 2 minutes on your own, it can be, it happens that you will say and ooh a lot, as you can see from me talking now. But what you can try to do is memorize some phrases that you can use instead of so that you can use them to move on to another topic. So if, sorry, another point on the prompts. So those might be something like, okay, moving on to the next prompt, the next idea, or another thing is, or the next point is. So that can just help to make your speaking sound a little bit more concise and well organized, rather than just free flow ideas. Okay, so one of the important parts of part 2 is that you have 1 minute to make notes. So it's also really important to consider how you make notes. So we have 2 different types. So obviously you can see that one of them is more kind of like list form. So these are the prompts that are given by the examiner on the card. And then this person has made notes, not full sentences, just short ideas about each prompt. So this is more like a list format. Or you have over here more of a mind map. So we have the prompts again, and then some short ideas with numbering to say which is coming first, second, third, and fourth. So it's a really good idea for you to do some practice and find the best system for note-taking, because some people will prefer the mind map and others the list. So just try both and decide which one feels more comfortable for you. Okay, and that moves us on to part 3. So part 3 is a discussion with the examiner. You have 4 or 5 minutes, and this part you are talking about general and abstract ideas. So this is the most difficult part of the exam, because you're not talking so much about personal experience or everyday topics. It's much more conceptual ideas. So the examiner will start the discussion with a question that's kind of related to part 2. So you need to give your ideas. It's not a time so much for you to talk about personal experience. Now you need to be using kind of hypothetical situations and that kind of thing to explore the idea. The examiner will ask you questions related to how you answer. So they might pick something interesting that you said and take that as the discussion. They will try to increase the difficulty of the questions as you go. So just be aware that the questions will get more difficult and you need to try and push yourself to express your ideas about that. What else? Yeah, okay, so this obviously, as I said, the focus of this part is for you to be able to justify and express your opinions, to analyze, to discuss and speculate. So all of those really much more difficult things. It's not do you like flowers? It's going to be more conceptual, as I said. Okay, so some tips from the examiner. Don't worry if you don't understand the instructions or the question. It's absolutely fine for you to ask them to repeat the question. And also, if you don't know one of the words in the question, ask them, what does that word mean? It's much better to clarify with the examiner what they are asking than to pretend that you understand and answer a different question. So that's really important. So always clarify if you're not sure. It doesn't lose you points. In fact, it saves you points because if you go off track, then that's when the examiner will start marking you down. So this is also the time when you can be using your most fancy English language. So you can use conditionals, modals, the more difficult language that you know. What you shouldn't be using is I think, blah, 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 present simple, first person, because that's very, very basic language. So just remember that this is a language exam, so you do need to show your amazing abilities and your interesting idioms and phrasal verbs and tenses that you know to show the examiner that you are a band 9 or whatever you're aiming for. And then finally, another tip from the examiner was avoid using Spanish. If you have to say, if you want to talk about something, then just make sure you explain what that thing is. So for example, if you want to talk about pozole, just make sure you explain what is it, and don't assume that they know. So that's another important thing. Okay, so from that information, can you write in the chat, what do you think can go wrong in an IELTS speaking exam? Or what do you feel worried about with the idea? So can you just write something in the chat? Okay, so Nayeli says use the wrong tenses. We'll say pretend to know everything. Do you mean Dulce that pretend to know what the examiner is asking, or do you mean in your answers just pretend to know everything? Okay, so hesitation, bad pronunciation. Okay, in the answers, I think it's okay for you to pretend to know that you know everything. That's fine. If you go with the confidence that you do know everything, that's a perfect situation. How to structure your ideas, that's a tricky one. But using bad verb tenses. Okay, so there's lots of things that can possibly go wrong. I think everyone's focused a little bit on your language, but what about things like feeling nervous? Oh, there we go, Deanna. What about get nervous and you can't control yourself? True, yeah. So we do need to remember that exams are can be really stressful, and particularly at the moment with the pandemic, it has changed the way the exams are happening, so it can be quite difficult. So we're just going to look now at some things that you can do for practice and preparation so that you feel really confident on the day that you can perform as best you can. So the first thing obviously to do is to practice. So I've got several ideas here on different ways you can do that. So the first one is using Vocaroo. So Vocaroo is a website that records your voice. And similar to that is Flipgrid, which records a video of you speaking. Or, of course, you can just use your phone and record a video. So I would suggest that you record a video, because it's really important for you to know what is your face doing when you're talking, what's the body language that you're using. So as I said before, remember that the examiner is not a robot. They are listening to you, and they want to be interested in what you're saying. So if you're like this, no eye contact, no smiling, then it's difficult for them to engage with you. If you're really engaged and you're looking at them and you're expressive, then that can really help with it. So you can record a video of yourself. doing one of the practice exams that you can find on the IELTS website. I'll give it to you in a second. And then you basically need to watch it and really analyze what are you doing. So what things do you do well and what things do you need to improve? So think about, are there words that you're repeating? What's your grammar like? Are you using different tenses or is it just present simple? Are you hesitating a lot? Do you organize your ideas? So just do a practice and then watch it, try to be objective, and then you can see what exactly do you need to improve. So that's the first thing to do. The second thing is to have a look and learn from others. So there's the official IELTS website here on YouTube. Okay, so you can have a look on that website, and you can see people doing the exam. So you can you'll see what score they achieved, and so then you can also compare that to yourself. If you want to get a 7.5, watch some videos of people who got 7.5 and see what exactly they did that you can sort of learn from. There's also another website called IELTS by IDP. So they have also some videos and lots of useful tips for doing the exam. Another thing that you can do is have a look and see what's the criteria. I think someone mentioned it earlier. So what exactly is it that you need to do? What's the difference between a band 6 and a band 7? So you can try and read that and understand it, and then you can see what am I aiming to do. If you don't know what band you need to find that out immediately, because that will help you in your practice and preparation. So you need to speak to the university that you're applying for, speak to the job or the work that you're doing. Whatever it is, you need to find out what band do you need. Okay, and then finally, of course, grammar is an important part of the IELTS exam. So just make sure that you are perfectly confident using the different grammar that you need in the exam. So for example, in part 1, you're talking mostly about yourself and your personal experience. So you might need, well, you definitely need present simple, you might need past simple, present perfect. For part 2, you're talking about your experiences, so you'll need narrative tenses, so past continuous, past perfect, past simple, those ones. And then finally, for the part 3, remember this is talking like hypothetically, so there you will need conditionals, modals, things like that. So use an app. We have one from the British Council, and just make sure that you are confident that you can use those different tenses. And that way you can focus more on your ideas and your answers than on what tense am I using it correctly? Okay, so finally, what to expect in the pandemic. So what you won't get is what's happening here, because of course this doesn't happen anymore. So if you register for a face-to-face speaking exam, remember that you will have a face mask, the examiner will have a face mask, and you'll have a plastic screen between you. So what does that mean for how easy or difficult the exam is? Of course, it's more difficult to understand when someone is talking like this. It's also more difficult for them to hear you. And also it means that you're smiling and your facial expressions get lost behind the mask. So if that is the exam that you want to do, that's fine, but just make sure you practice in those conditions. So make sure all of your practice is with a mask. If you wear glasses like me, remember that you might your glasses might steam up, and so you might not be able to see. So it's just very important for you to practice, because it can be disconcerting to arrive and realize, my God, I can't see the person's face. So the other option that you can do is called VCS, so it's video conference speaking. In this one, you will do the exam over the computer or through the computer. So you will be in the center in Polanco. So you'll go into a room and you can take off your mask, and you'll be speaking to the examiner somewhere in the world, and they also won't be wearing a mask. So that option is better in terms of no masks, but of course there is other things like, do you feel comfortable talking on to a screen? Is it more difficult because you're looking at your own face? Does that make you more nervous? So again, if you choose that type of exam, you need to practice so that you feel super confident and super comfortable in doing that. Okay, so I think that's all the information I have. So I'm going to ask you for your questions. Does anybody have any? Oh, Dulce.
Yes. Hi, Bella. Thank you.
Hi.
I would like just to verify if there are just the two options you just gave us about the face-to-face and the video conference, or there is another one that where you can be at your home and do it online, or is that not an option?
No, that's not an option. I spoke to the head of the exam department today, and he said that's not an option. It's just the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess because it's not, I don't know, maybe they can't make sure that it's like a secure, like a secure connection, and that you don't have notes just here.
Oh, yes. That's it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions? Oh, sorry. Okay, Deanna, I'm planning to take IELTs in October, take a preparation course the last 2 weeks of September. Do you recommend me continuing for another 2 weeks after the course, or take the exam immediately? Well, I don't think 2 weeks will. Well, I don't know. I don't think it's going to make that much difference, 2 weeks, Deanna. So you can, in that 2 weeks, you can either take the time to do some more practice, like on your own, and to absorb the information that you have received from the course. I think that the IELTS preparation course is quite heavy. There's lots of information. So maybe it would be good to have the time to think about that. Is that what you said? Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think maybe it would be good, and then you can do some extra practice as well. Okay. So I think we've got. So Paula, you have your hand up.
Yes, Bella. Yes, my question is more about I remember, but I'm not so sure that British Council have this course of preparation for the IELTS. Is that true?
Yeah. So the course, I mean, it runs in the same way that the other courses do. So there'll be one starting in the summer, and or you can wait until term 4 that will start like at the end of August, and that will be over a longer period. The summer course is in 1 month, and then normally it's in 2 months. So,
But it's the same content and is the same in both, no? Even if I choose summer or before.
yeah, the difference is just that you have more to do every day. So,
All right.
yeah. I think the important thing with the IELTS preparation is that you come prepared. The course will help you to maybe improve by 0.5. So you need to come with the level of English that you need for the exam, because the course is really about strategies for doing the exam, not so much about improving your English. That makes sense.
So, but they are going to tell you if you have the level of English for that course, or it's up to you to. It's more like your own examination of yourself. I don't know.
Well, so you have to have I think it's B2 level of English to do the course. But then also, for example, if you're applying for university, you need to know, the university wants me to have a 7.5 or a 7 or a 6.5. So
in my case, it's 6.5, for example.
Okay. So what I suggest then is take one of the practice IELTS exams online.
Okay.
And see what you get for at least the listening and the reading, and that will give you a kind of rough idea about where you are. And then you can also talk to your teacher about whether they think it's possible. Which is me.
I will. Thank you. I will ask him to ask her tomorrow.
Okay, great. She will think about it. Okay. Okay, so Nayeli asked, I'm studying on my own, but do you recommend I take a course of an IELTS preparation course? To be honest, I would take an IELTS preparation course. There is some really good tips and strategies. You also can get feedback on your writing and your speaking. I believe the IELTS exam is not cheap. So I would suggest you aim to do the IELTS exam once, and it might involve doing a preparation course before. You don't want to keep taking it like every 2 months to try and get the band that you need. Okay, so I've got 2 other people with their hands up. Emmanuel and then Roberto.
Yes. Hi, Bella.
Hi.
My question is, how many times do you advise for a person to prepare for the IELTS? And I think it depends on the strategy that one follows, but I mean, generally speaking, how many times do you consider it's good to take before taking the exam?
Do you mean if you're studying independently or if you're doing the preparation course?
Well, considering you are taking the preparation course.
Well, so kind of as I said before, answering Deanna's question, I think when you finish the course, I would suggest having like a week or something where you can do some intense preparation on your own, using everything you learned in the preparation course, and then take the exam. You don't want to leave it for maybe, I don't know, more than a month after you finish the preparation course, because you'll start to forget things. You need to keep a good balance of confidence and nerves and stress. So depending on what your personality is, I would say probably maybe a week or 2 weeks after you finish the preparation course, take the exam, if possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Roberto. Is it Roberto? Did you have your hand up? No? Oh.
No.
I've got a random hand. I don't know who it belongs to.
Probably if something happened here.
Okay, so another question, how long should I wait for before receiving your results? I believe that the results are quite fast, so it takes about 2 weeks, I think, or a week. But I think it also depends on which type of exam you're doing. If you're doing the computer one, I think it's faster, and if you're doing the paper one, it's slower. So, but about 2 weeks. So it's very important that you think about your timing or your deadlines. So if, for example, you need to achieve the IELTs by, let's say, December, you need to work backwards from there. So maybe what you will do is take the preparation course in the summer and then take your IELTS exam at the beginning of September. And that also gives you time, if you do fail, that you can try again. So whatever you do, don't leave the preparation course and the exam to the last moment, because that will make it more stressful, and that will mean that you're not more nervous in the exam, and that might affect the score that you get. Okay, so is there any final questions? Oh, one more. Okay. Are the examiners from many parts of the world? Because the listening. You mean the listening in the... You mean listening to the questions in the speaking exam, or do you mean the listening part of the exam? Well, I think listening to the person. Okay, so I think that most of them are obviously living in Mexico and just doing it via video conferencing. If you're talking about accents, then I think it's really important to remember that the IELTS examiners all have an extremely high level of English. Maybe they're native, maybe not, but they all... so I don't think it's really about... I wouldn't worry too much about listening for accents, because remember, you can clarify if you don't understand. They will speak very slowly, not very slowly, they will speak clearly. They've had extensive training, so I don't think that will be a problem, basically. Okay, great. So any final questions?
You make the IELTS?
Do I do the IELTS? No. No, they actually, because I was talking to an IELTS speaking examiner today to get these tips, and they are actually not allowed to give training on the speaking exam or any part of the IELTS, so that's why I had to do it secretly. But no, I'm not an examiner.
Great.
I'm just sharing
Don't
their
apply,
secret.
so pity.
Exactly. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much for coming, and I wish you good luck in your IELTS exams if you do them. And this recording, I will be putting it up onto our Google Drive probably tomorrow. So if you want to come back and listen to any of the information, then you can do that. I'll put the link on Edmodo. And also the presentation I will put on Edmodo in the My Club Edmodo group, so you can also look at the presentation, the PowerPoint, I mean. So, thanks everybody. Have a lovely evening, and
You too. Thank you, Bella.
see you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bella.
Bye.